WRUU-LP Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings Community Radio with Global Soul. Welcome to Muses, Memoirs, and More, Savannah's show about authors, artists, and entertainers. I'm your host, Adam Messer.
WRUU-LP Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings Community Radio with Global Soul.
And welcome to Muses Memoirs and More. I'm your host, Adam Messer. And today we are going to flip the script a little bit. If you remember last week, we had Josh Vazquez from the Savannah Zombie novel series in the house. And he has graciously decided that he would come back today, and we're going to flip the script. He's actually going to be interviewing me. He's going to be our guest host today, and we'll probably have him on in the future as well. So I just wanted to thank you, Josh, for coming in.
You're welcome. Glad to be back. Glad to be back in 2 weeks in a row.
I know. We had such a good time last week. And before we get into it, Josh actually, everybody just broadcasted his first podcast for the Savannah Zombie novel series yesterday. I thought it was really good. I actually listened to it. I was like a night owl, so I was up in the middle of the night listening to it. Very cool, very cool. So I'm going to turn it over to Josh. Thank you all for listening, and Josh, take it away.
Thanks, Adam. Yeah, it was. I think I kind of caught the bug from you last week with doing the radio show. So the
awesome.
podcast thing was kind of one of those things I've been wanting to do, and I don't know, doing the radio show last week was a lot of fun, and then it kind of just worked out where you wanted me to guest host this week, so I was like, you know what, maybe I'll just dip my toes into the pool a little bit.
That's awesome.
So, but yeah, thanks for having me back. I'm glad to be guest hosting. This is going to be pretty fun, and it is cool to kind of be on the other side of the microphone now that we get to kind of flip the script, as you said.
Yeah.
And I get to interview you, so I hope you're prepared for all the hard questions I have.
I don't know. Hey, I just want to throw in there too. You guys can watch us live Facebook right now. There's two different places you can watch it, right?
It's the live video will be on your Facebook. I don't know if I'm going to do live. I might just catch some B-roll in the background.
Okay. If you go to the Muses Memoirs and More Facebook page, we are doing live on Facebook as well. So we're trying to just reach out to you. And then Josh is actually a videographer, so I'm thinking you probably were going to do some kind of video.
I might cobble something together. Yeah.
I like the stuff that you do, Josh.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. It might take me forever to put together. But cool. So we have known each other it's been probably, I want to say, I reached out to you in, I want to say it was 2014.
Yeah, I was going to say
probably.
I think it was 2014. Yeah.
Yeah. And
somewhere around the fall or something like that, like late summer, early fall.
Yeah, you were writing the Geek Fringe column for a local paper, and I was like, well, hey, maybe you'd want to write about me, and I'm not that big of a deal or anything yet. Adam was super cool, emailed me back and was like, yeah, I'd love to interview you. So we kind of he interviewed me and then wrote up this very cool article, and that was the first time I was in the paper, and it was very cool. And
I didn't know that was the first time you were in the paper.
No.
Cool.
That was my first big piece of publicity. So
wow.
Yeah, you were there at the start.
I'm glad that I could find that out.
Yeah. So yeah, we've known each other for a couple years now. We've done on and off things, working together. Savannah Quill, the convention that you started, which we'll get to later. But so you are a writer. But when people think writer, for the most part, they often think someone who writes books, like an author, or someone who's just more of a book-centered kind of writer.
Right.
But there's so many different other kinds of writing, and you take more place in the business side and the newspaper side, which I don't think a lot of people hear about a lot.
Yeah, and. The funny thing is, I love to read nonfiction.
Mm-hmm.
I like writing nonfiction. I don't have a published book.
Yeah.
We were talking before. I have a finished first draft of a novella.
Yes.
But like we were talking last week about the editing, that's a part that I've got to go back into. And matter of fact, just this morning, I belted out like 1,000 words on that short story that we were talking about last week for the Coven of Savannah. But published, it is different when, you think of like writers and authors and the type of writing that's out there, because my published work is journalism. It's for the paper. I usually write about event journalism, things that are going on in the community and that kind of thing. So, and I like to call it popcorn because it's light and fluffy and people enjoy it. It's, I'm not doing a daily beat, and I'm not reporting on crime and, the hard news and stuff like that. But I am reporting on things that people enjoy, fundraisers, 5K runs, theater, art, a lot of different things like that. The geek fringe, kind of like the weird side of Savannah. So, I agree with you. It's one of those things where people think, and when you say author, they automatically think of books.
Yeah.
If you say writer, it means a lot of different things.
Yeah.
If you say journalist, it means one specific thing. But when they think of a journalist, they don't really think of, they think of a reporter. They don't think of someone who, just writes like community pieces like I do.
Yeah.
So, and I love writing for the Savannah Morning News and the Do Savannah. I love being able to make new friends. Like, we've been friends going on 5 years now, you know, and you just hit it off with some people, and you have people that have, common interests, and they're doing the same kind of things that you want to do.
Yeah.
So I think it's cool. I like it.
Yeah, and you very much are like a networker. Like, you will put people together. Like, it was like, I don't know how I met this person, but I remember Adam had something to do with it. So there's like so many people that I know now that are like, okay, yeah, that's because of Adam. And so it's really cool how you have kind of like just through your writing the column and all that, you've been able to kind of connect with other people and then connect people and all that. Yeah. Is that something that you have always done as a person, or is that just because of the writing?
Do you have all day?
No, we have 55 minutes left now, I think. So not too long.
I think my writing, my love for writing started when I was a kid. I've always liked drawing and writing and that kind of thing. I was really big into comic books as a kid, really big into reading as a kid. And thanks to my mom and dad, they were avid readers. My mom used to take us to the library. As a kid, we didn't have a ton of money, so the library was awesome because you had, just a million different places you could go by reading a book. Yeah. And so as a little kid, elementary school, I remember doing some contests and winning some little contests or whatever. And then in high school, funny enough, I was actually on the newspaper staff for Dixie Heights High School. Okay. And so I was the front page editor. We only published 4 issues that year. Yeah. It was probably the worst record ever. I don't know why we were so unmotivated. Yeah. But we only did 4. Literally, it was like maybe 1 a quarter, and it wasn't even consistent. It wasn't even like, we're going to do it. Yeah. The beginning of the school year, every quarter. It was just like, hey, we got it done.
Hey, here's a newspaper. You should read this.
Right. But with those classes that I took 2 years, junior and senior year. I learned about journalism. I learned about, the process and, having integrity and morality and being as unbiased as possible. We're all human. We're going to make our own decisions. Kind of put that off. Never thought that I would actually be in a newspaper type thing afterwards. But I still love to write. I took AP English in high school with Mr. Beach, one of the most influential people that I've ever had with my writing, and just loved it. I continued to write, but when I started going back to school, I got into like academic writing. Yes. And research, and I spent a lot of time because I did my undergrad in business, I did my master's in business, and then I did a second master's in information systems. Yeah. So I had to do a lot of writing, academic writing, research, reading, that kind of thing. Excuse me. And that's kind of where the business background and the leadership background with my writing comes into play, because I had to do it for so long. And but when I started doing the community pieces, I kind of had to scale back my writing.
Yeah.
You know, you have to write to your audience. You know, you can't, you can't really, try to bring in research pieces
Yeah.
for, like, hey, we're doing a 5K run. So I did, I started doing more of an interview style, of course, with the articles and whatever. But that's kind of the genesis of it, the kind of a crash course of like where I came from with my writing style.
Mm-hmm.
And I try to learn from everybody. That's another big thing. The different people that I've met, I try to learn something from everybody.
Yeah. Now, like writing, is that something that you have always been drawn to? Because I mean, it sounds like it's pretty much always kind of been there.
Yeah, it's always been a part of my life.
Yeah.
Even when I write, when I was just talking to my son this morning, part of that short story that I was writing,
Mm-hmm.
Believe it or not, I wrote a song.
Yeah.
Because the short story is about a heavy metal band that are a bunch of vampires.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, okay, well, this would be cool to have a kind of like a heavy metal song.
Yeah.
And my son was asking me, he was like, well, how do you rhyme? How do you kind of put those lyrics together? And I said, well, I used to read William Shakespeare.
Mm-hmm.
I used to read a lot of poetry. I used to write a lot of poetry, and it's just part of me.
Mm-hmm.
I love writing. That doesn't mean that I always love it.
Yeah. No.
I mean,
no.
there's sometimes where I'm like, oh gosh, I got to put it away, and it kind of just beats me up, But even on those days, I love it because I feel like it's a chance to serve my community,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like it's a chance to, you can't murder somebody.
No.
It's illegal, and
Yeah.
you shouldn't do
It's
it
frowned
anyway,
upon,
right?
yeah.
But if you write a story,
Yeah.
you can do whatever you want in it.
Mhm.
You can't travel in space,
Nope.
but
Not
you write-
yet, at least.
Not yet. But if
Getting
you
there.
you write a story, you can go wherever you want to.
Yeah.
So it's kind of escapism, right?
Mhm.
In there as far as the fiction. As far as leadership and business, I like to try to post the facts,
Yeah.
and stick with that. So
Very cool. So you said that you liked reading nonfiction.
yeah, I love leadership, business books, and I like they used to be called self-help books, I guess,
Yeah.
but like leadership, motivation,
Yeah.
you know.
So do you feel like it's because you enjoy nonfiction reading and all that you are able to kind of write like more creatively, or do you feel like that it's kind of vice versa than that?
I've always been a nerd.
Yeah.
And I used to love comics, especially like Spider-Man, X-Men, Batman. Those, and I think that has a lot to do with it.
Okay.
I used to read a lot of science fiction and fantasy, like Tolkien and Piers Anthony, and especially Isaac Asimov. I loved Isaac Asimov as a kid, and I think that just kind of that when I was a younger person, that's all I used to read.
Yeah.
But now, what I like to read is nonfiction, and I like to read historical books. And I think it kind of gives you a perspective. Like sometimes, like they say, truth's stranger than fiction.
Yes.
Some of the things that you can find out are just completely absurd. You're like, did that really happen? And then you find out, yeah, it did. It really happened.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I enjoy fictional writing more because you can do whatever you want.
Mm-hmm.
And
you said you were never really assumed that you would grow up to be like a newspaper writer.
no.
But I think it's that time to do that thing that we do on the 15 minutes. So you want to do that, or do you want me to do it?
Well, you're listening to Muses, Memoirs, and More. I'm your host, Adam Messer, but today we're flipping the script. So Josh Vazquez from the Savannah Zombie novel series is actually interviewing me. He's our guest host. And you are listening to us on WRUU-LP Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings, community radio with global soul. And Josh, I appreciate you being here today, and
Yep.
we're flipping the script. So thanks everybody for listening in out there too.
Yep. Thanks for listening, and thanks for letting me fumble through the.
Oh, you're doing a great job.
Yeah, that was great.
You're
I
doing
was
a
like,
great
"What
job.
is it called again?" I know we took like a break for something at 15 minutes, but I was just having so much
This
fun.
first
with the-
15 minutes seems like it's flown by.
I was like,
too,
"Really?
so,
It's
yeah.
15 minutes already?" And okay, cool. So I was asking you about growing up. You said you didn't really picture yourself kind of being a newspaper writer. So how did that happen? Take me through that process. Take the listeners through the process of how you went from having that not on your radar to like, hey, now I'm writing this column in the Savannah Do section.
Yeah. I kind of bugged my editor to let me write.
Okay.
I was doing photography for Savannah More News Spotted.
Okay. Yeah.
And
That's when they go around and they take pictures of like different like events and stuff like that,
yeah,
right? Okay.
exactly. And I was getting really into that. I had a lot of fun with that. And we had a little get together. And Heather Henley is our editor.
Mm-hmm.
And I just put the bug out there. I was like, hey, I'd like to write. And she's like, send me a couple sample pieces, and that was that.
Yeah.
And I didn't really do much with it.
Okay.
And then a couple months later, I saw this game store was opening up in Pooler called Savannah Lion Games.
Yes.
And
I was actually there yesterday.
yeah, it's a great store. Jeremy
Yeah.
Causeway is a really nice guy. And I went to him and I said, I can promise you that I can do an event photo with the Spotted. I can do event photos for your grand opening. But what I'd like to do is I'd like to submit an article to the editor and see if she might be interested in it.
Mm-hmm.
And I told him, I said, I can't promise you it'll be published. I don't really even know, whatever. So I just sent him over a few questions, and he wrote it back. I sent it over to Heather, and she said, this is great. And then, kind of took off from there. And then I would pitch ideas to her, and she would send me back, stories that she wanted me to cover. And, over the years, it's just kind of developed like that, and the same kind of thing. And I always tell people, I can't promise you that your event will get published, but what I can promise you is that I can pitch it. And by pitch, I mean, submit the story as an idea.
Yeah.
And I can always pitch the idea. And then if it gets approved, it gets approved. If it doesn't, then, we can just try again, with something else. So it just kind of flows like that. Sometimes you get a bunch of story ideas, and sometimes it's kind of, like summertime's a little bit slower.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's a little bit slower.
Yeah.
But it's been pretty straightforward.
It's a very cool column. I've always enjoyed reading it, and it's
I always wonder if anybody actually reads it.
yeah, I do. I read it.
Thank you, Josh.
But no, I think it's a great column too, because I mean there is kind of a pretty decent sized geek community here in Savannah.
Yeah.
Like Savannah's it's like this southern town, but we're very eclectic when it comes to the type of people that we have here. There's all
Yeah.
different kinds of different groups and all that, and the geek community is pretty decently big. Like we've got like you said, the Savannah Lion Games out there in Pooler. There's a few places down here downtown that are just basically havens for geek.
Yeah.
And no, it's pretty cool. And then you kind of show some of those sides in the column and all that. And do you have obviously you don't have to say it's mine because I'm guest hosting, but do you have like a favorite article that you wrote for the Geek Fringe, or one that just stands out to you?
There's been a couple different ones. A couple years back, I wrote an article for the Deep Center, and I thought that was a great one.
Yeah.
It wasn't necessarily a geek fringe column, but we were talking about one of their fundraisers, and it was just really interesting.
And what is the Deep Center for those that are listening?
They focus on helping inner city youth being able to become literate and also to write.
Yeah.
To learn how to write, and they actually publish like a coffee book every year from the kids' writings.
Yeah.
And I thought it was really cool. I've always felt like literacy, reading and writing, can change someone's circumstances. And you don't have to have a college education to be educated.
Yeah.
But you do need to be able to read and write to be educated.
Yeah.
You can learn anything you want from a book. And now, gosh, we've got every kind of resource out there. There's kids out there that, they're taking cell phones and writing books.
Yeah.
They're making videos and movies and things like that. using free Wi-Fi.
Mm-hmm.
No budget at all.
Yeah.
And I'm just amazed at what kids today are able to do. Just because of the access to the resources on the internet.
It's crazy.
It is.
It's crazy.
It is. And I was so moved by the story with the kids. I think that's one of my more, I don't know, memorable stories that I wrote about. I always love meeting people. I always love talking to different folks. And I've had a chance to meet some really interesting people.
Yeah.
So I felt very fortunate to be able to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I know that you have a big heart for literacy and raising an awareness for that. But what some people might not know, if you're just tuning into the show or this is the first episode you're catching, Adam Messer has actually started the Savannah Quill Convention,
Right.
which is main purpose is to promote literacy by connecting readers and authors. And we had our first one last year. I was one of the guests there, and there was a ton of other authors, and it was just this great time of just kind of basically hanging out with book people and getting people connected with new authors. And we had just a whole gamut of different things to read, and it was a lot of fun. So what took you from just a journalist writer to wanting to start a book convention? Like, where does that leap come from? 'Cause to me, that's like a giant leap. That's like,
yeah. I tell you what,
you're nuts, Adam. You're nuts.
I know, right? I know. My wife's always telling me I'm doing too much, but not enough of everything. Right?
Yeah.
It was a strange, kind of a weird click. I'd been working on my novella, and I wanted to publish a book.
Yeah.
I wanted to go self-publishing route. Found out that was really hard, really hard. And I know some people are out there, they're like, oh, buy this program and you can learn how to do it in 20 days or 20 minutes or whatever. I'm not one of those people.
Yeah.
I mean, I pick up stuff quickly. I can write, but like we talked about last week, I'm not really a big editor. And I'm working on that. Actually, I've been working on that this week, in fact, on trying to improve on the editing process.
Yeah. And if you're listening, you'll have to go back and listen to last week's episode.
2, yeah.
It is on YouTube under Muses Memoirs and More.
Right.
So just search that, and you can find the past 2 weeks' episodes up there.
Yeah, and I had a lot of fun last week with interviewing you and talking to you about the writing process. And you just kind of loved editing, and for me, that's something that I'm working on. Challenge, but the convention idea came from the idea that we need to focus on something for indie authors and writers, and in the area. And Savannah has a ton of writers and a ton of authors, but I don't think that our hometown really gives a lot of play to that. We have a couple of really awesome bookstores, local bookstores in town.
Yes.
We have a lot of awesome local author signings and things like that. But there's a couple of big conventions, or a couple of big book festivals like the Savannah Book Festival and then the Children's Book Festival. And so I just thought that there was a need for us to be able to have an indie spot where, you might not be a published writer or a published author. You might be just a self-published person.
Yeah.
And it was so cool because we had people coming from California. We had people coming from New York, Tennessee, Kentucky, Texas. I mean, there were all these people that came from all over to come to the convention. And, so it was a kind of a small turnout. I think we had about 100 people come for the convention. We had over 30 authors. But we had a great time. I mean, the people that came, I feel like we had a really good time. Yeah. And I enjoyed it. It kind of...
I think the only time I sat down was at lunch.
Yeah. And gosh, that was... what a lunch that was. Yeah.
It was catered by Chisitos. They brought out the food truck from Pooler.
Yes.
And man, is that some good food. I think I had the carnitas, and man, whoo!
Yeah.
We could do a whole show on that.
I had empanadas, and I was like, oh, gosh. But they always say if you feed people, they'll come, right?
Yes, yeah.
Right. But kind of after that, though, because I was hoping that we would have more people show up. because I had a lot of people telling me they were going to come, and
Yeah.
I was kind of down in the dumps. I mean, it was just like, oh gosh, this is a failure,
Yeah.
and this isn't going to work out. And I almost didn't do it again.
Yeah.
But I don't know, maybe about 2 months ago now, I thought, okay, I'm going to try this one more time.
Mm-hmm.
And I listened to what people were wanting
Yeah.
that I didn't do last year.
Mm-hmm.
They, our spot was pretty cool. It was over at Eisenhower at the National Guard Armory, but
Mm-hmm.
it was hot. It was really hot.
It was a little on the warmer side.
Yeah, and the other thing too was people wanted an after party, and they wanted fall vendors.
Yeah.
Kind of like something else just besides books and things like that.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, if I'm going to do this again,
Mhm.
I've got to step it up. I want it to be a lot better, and I want people to enjoy it.
Mhm.
So this year I moved it out to Pooler at the Cottonwood Suites.
Mhm.
They've redone the entire place. I've got the whole place. I've cut back the number of authors from 30 to 15.
Okay.
Right now we're sitting on about 7 or 8 authors or whatever.
Yeah.
And I've added fall vendors.
Okay.
So, it's going to be kind of like a fall festival. As a matter of fact, it's called the Savannah Sweets, Treats, and Reads.
Yeah.
And the whole premise is to promote literacy. We connect writers and readers to promote literacy.
Mm-hmm.
And also added the after party,
Yes.
which is something that people were asking about. It's going to be the most lit after party.
Super lit.
Yeah.
It's gonna be so many lights there.
Yeah.
Wait,
and
that's not what you mean, is it? No.
No,
Okay.
no.
Sorry.
We got Ben Umbright coming out. He's the DJ that does the Purple Parties here in Savannah and
Yes.
all over. And
I think he's in Charlotte today.
Yeah, yeah. So it was just, and it's kind of weird event planning,
Mm-hmm.
because you try to figure out what people want and give them what they want, and promoting literacy through this event. The whole thing is trying to get kids excited and people excited about reading.
Mm-hmm.
And doing this whole event, it's very taxing.
Yes. Yeah.
There's a lot of work.
Yeah. There's so much work that goes into just pulling something of that scale off.
Yeah.
Even when it's like the first year, and was kind of a smaller scale last year. I mean,
Yeah.
so much of that planning that you did and all that for getting everybody all together on the same page. And then, I know you were kind of disappointed with some of the turnout, but you got to think about like all the stuff that you had to reschedule and all that, because
Yeah.
it was originally set for the
year
before.
and we got blown out by the hurricane.
Yeah. So you can't plan. Well, I mean, you can kind of, because they take forever to get here, but hurricanes kind of do what they want. So yeah, but
I think it was well worth it though, and the folks that are involved this year so far are just dynamic.
Yeah.
I mean, the folks that are they're local authors. I try to recruit a couple of local authors to get in, more local authors, and try to scale it back, because I wanted to give people what they wanted. I felt like the folks that were in it, that had their heart in it, they're going to help promote literacy and push that as well.
definitely.
And that's where the whole idea is. It's like, I don't make any money off the convention.
No.
But it would be nice if we could raise some funds and help out the community.
Mm-hmm.
It would be nice if we could do some other things, because I genuinely feel like, literacy is the key for anybody, really. I mean, not just kids, but, adults as well.
Yeah, 'cause raising awareness is a huge part of it, but at the same time, you also want to kind of be able to help,
Right.
like different groups
Right.
and individuals that you could put the funds towards and
Right.
help them.
So
But so I think we're closing in on another break. Since I'm guest hosting, I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to you, because I'm not 100% sure how that works. And
right.
we're completely professional here.
Well, we've got this break coming up, but you've been listening to Muses Memoirs and More, and I'm your host, Adam Messer. We've got Josh Vazquez here today, co-hosting. Want to flip the script on the program today, so please stay tuned for these station announcements, and then we'll be right back after the break.
The Savannah National Wildlife Refuge protects more than 29,000 acres of freshwater marshes, tidal rivers and creeks, and bottomland hardwoods along the Savannah River, supporting a diverse array of migratory and resident wildlife. Visitor activities include a scenic wildlife drive, biking and hiking trails, and a free series of monthly speakers covering conservation and historical topics on the second Saturday of each month. For more information, visit fws.gov/Savannah.
Listen to the best eclectic mix of music on Evening Eclectic on Sundays from 10 to midnight on WRUU-LP Savannah, Georgia.
WRUU-LP Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings Community Radio with Global Soul.
WRUU brings you the most diverse and passionate local radio programming on the air in Savannah. This all-volunteer and nonprofit community radio station accepts no money from any form of government. Our diversity and independence is made possible only through the generous financial support of listeners like you. We rely on your annual and ongoing monthly contributions to cover the many costs associated with bringing you our broadcast and web programming. If you are a contributor, thank you. If you are not yet a contributor, please show your appreciation of the role WRUU plays in your life by becoming a contributor in any amount. You can donate quickly and easily by credit card or check. Just find the donate and subscribe links at WRUU.org. Thanks for listening to and supporting WRUU.
And we're back. Thank you for staying tuned to Muses Memoirs and More. You're on WRUU-LP Savannah, Georgia, 107.5, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings Community Radio with Global Soul. I'm your host for the show, Adam Messer, and today we're flipping the script. So if you're just tuning in, we've got about another half an hour left of the program. Josh Vazquez is our guest host today. He's actually interviewing me.
Yeah.
So
backwards.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
You were on last week as the guest, and now this week you're on as the guest host.
Yes.
So I kind of dig that. It's pretty cool.
I am expanding my reach.
Your empire is growing.
Yeah, no, I'm just kidding. We've had some fun with last week's episode, and then I think this week's episode's been pretty fun so far. At least for me, it has.
Oh yeah,
putting you on the spot, asking you all the hard questions, and
yeah, I'm used to asking the questions.
I know,
and just kind of sitting back and listening.
Mr. Journalist Interview. How do you like this? And microphone in your face.
How do you like this? Yeah.
Okay.
And we're also Facebook Live and right now on Muses Memoirs and More.
Yep.
So you can actually kind of see I know I've got a goofy expression on my face right now.
Yeah. I just always have a goofy expression on my face.
Yeah.
So cool. So we were just talking about the Savannah Quill book convention and about how you went from journalist writer and you just have always had kind of a heart for promoting literacy and helping out in that aspect. And then you started the Savannah Quill, talked about last year's. We were kind of getting into talking about this year's.
Yeah.
What's one thing you want to see from this year's? Like, what's a goal you got?
If we didn't have another guest or vendor sign on, we've already got about 25 people.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt this way last year. I feel like this now. I want everybody to feel like $1 million when they leave. I want them to come in and, really enjoy it and have a great time because I know that's how I enjoy things. When I go somewhere, I want to feel like, wow, I really enjoyed that. I met some new friends. I got a chance to have a good conversation or two with somebody. I feel like I grew from it.
Yeah.
And that's what I hope. I hope that people that come out, they can see, that I don't want to say we vet people.
Yeah.
I don't like that term, but I want them to see that we invested time in trying to, get people in that really care about their authors and their readers. I was talking to a special guest the other day, and when I was talking to her, I actually mentioned to her that when someone buys a book, you know, at our show, we ask that you don't charge for your autograph.
Yeah.
And that actually happens. Believe it or not, a lot of authors charge, you know, one price for the book and then one price if you want the book signed.
Yeah.
And you
Which
know,
is, I don't know, to me, that's weird.
it is and it isn't. You know, I mean, because I could see, like, you know, if you're a big name and you have 1,000 people that want to get a copy signed,
Yeah.
your hand's gonna fall off.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Your hand's gonna be so tired. But we're a smaller show. We're in Savannah, and you know, but that is something that, you know, I had to stipulate for all of them, and I did that last year as well, because I want the readers to be able to connect with the author.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I asked if somebody wants to take a picture with you, you know, please,
Yeah.
you know, just take a picture with them.
Yeah.
Which some people don't. They don't like to do that.
Yeah.
Or they might have a manager that says, you know, well, you have to charge this much for a selfie or you
Yeah,
know, whatever.
definitely.
And I wanted to keep it affordable,
Mm-hmm.
keep it reasonable, where people could actually come out and be able to buy books without, you know, spending a ton of money on ticket prices.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
You know, so they could actually spend the time,
Yeah, 'cause-
you know, getting like a handful of books.
Yeah.
You know, that they met, you know, all these cool authors, you know. And I mean, the weird thing about it is that the next best seller might be sitting right here in Savannah
Yeah,
and self-publishing,
definitely.
and, you know, maybe sitting right across from me.
Maybe, I don't know.
You never know.
Probably not.
I really
Highly
do like your
unlikely.
North Pole Zombie series. I think you got something with that.
Okay, enough about me. We talked about me last week. You can listen to that episode if you want to on Adam's YouTube, the Muses Memoirs and More. Just search it.
Oh, gosh.
It's the one with my goofy picture, so you can just you can look that up if you're interested in those sort of things. But that's seriously enough about
No,
me.
actually, I mean, I'm all kidding aside. It was a really good short.
Quit trying to
story.
host. I'm the host.
I'm not trying to host. I'm not trying to host. I'm hands off.
Okay,
today,
cool.
All right.
Well, I mean, you got to do the board and stuff because I don't know how to do that yet.
Yeah.
Okay. So, all right. So, you've gone. I just want to go back to the original premise that I brought when
Yeah.
I first started asking you questions. It's
Circle
like
back around to
there's
it.
just so many different aspects of being a writer.
Right.
All right. And so far, we've
Right.
gone through the journalistic aspect and the academic aspect that you've done. And then we've ventured into you starting a book convention.
Right.
All right. And now you have a radio show. Is there anything that you do not do, Adam?
I'm not on TV.
You're not on, but you have been on TV. You've been on TV with me.
We have.
That's also the first time I've been on the local news is also because of Adam.
It all ties in together.
Yes, it does.
It all ties in together, and you know, you almost have to be maybe not an expert in every area,
Yeah.
but what's the first rule of writing? You know, write for your audience.
Yeah.
You know, and if that's one person or, you know, a million people,
Definitely.
you have to write to your audience or write for your audience. And for me, it all plays in together because this is the audience. You know, these, you know, like you were talking about earlier about networking. I don't look at it as so much per se as networking as I do building relationships with people.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Which is
And-
why you're so good at it.
well, you know, there's two types of folks, right? There's
Yeah.
transactional folks,
Yeah.
and there's relationship folks, and I want to be a relationship folk, because I feel like I don't see it as a give and take or take or give.
Yeah.
I see it as, okay, this is a mutual beneficial relationship, and the writing, the convention, the radio show. You know, the radio show was just like kind of it happened because I did an article with
Yeah.
Dr. Dave Lake, and one of the things he posted on there was that they were looking for new show ideas, and I thought, well, you know, I've been interviewing these, you know, different people for years now,
Definitely.
and I've always wanted to do a podcast. I always wanted to do something with those interviews that I could use. That's not necessarily in the 500 words a copy that I can use.
Yeah.
You know, so there's a lot of cool stuff that gets cut out because, you know, you can only put so much in an article. And I thought, wow, this would be, you know, a radio show would be really cool to be able to do that and help people with the how-tos of, like, you know, like last week we were talking about editing. You know, like, how do you get over that hurdle?
Yeah.
And so it all kind of just meshes together. I mean, sometimes it doesn't always fit well,
Yeah.
you know, but at some point or another, it comes together. And, you know, something that you say today, you never know, Josh. It might help somebody click
Yeah.
that's
definitely.
listening to this, you know, they might be
That's happened to
somewhere
me
across the
before
world.
listening to things, and
Yeah, it just,
not even like related to writing things. It's like, oh, okay, that
Yeah.
I could apply
Yeah.
that there.
Yeah, so that's kind of how it all, in my brain, it just kind of, you know, kind of meshes together here and there,
Yeah.
like a, you know, like a node on a point somewhere, and I'm like, oh yeah, I remember so and so does this, and so and so is looking for someone who does that, and
Yeah.
you know, so
No, I mean, yeah, definitely 100% what you just said is like that's it. I mean, you get it. So that's very cool. Man, I just had a question and it just vanished. Like
Oh, take your time.
It was like
That's
is
no worries.
it time for a break yet? Can I think about this for a minute? No, it's not. Okay, cool.
no, we've got about another 5.
Another 5 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, maybe it'll pop back up in there sooner or later. So we've gone over all this. You're now in this radio show, and which I think is great because it's kind of like you were saying about your Geek Fringe articles earlier, where it's very light, it's very kind of like popcorn, just something quick to digest. Where the radio
It's fun.
show and doing this, and then like with the podcasting these episodes, it's like you get this much more intimate look into the things that you get to talk about, like the interviews and stuff. So, like I really enjoyed your first episode with Will and Christina.
Yeah, they're
That was
awesome.
Yeah, it was.
by the way.
That was pretty cool, just
Yeah.
to see the little paranormal investigator side of it, and then with their trying to put together a book and how that works with the 2 authors working
Right.
together.
Right.
That's just a cool side of it to see.
Right. And Will, before I even did my my pitch for this show, he's the only person I knew that worked in radio.
Yeah.
And he's got a long history of experience. I mean, like, just really nice guy. And we hit it off when we first met, and he spent probably like an hour and a half, 2 hours talking with me. We were just talking, not necessarily like, you know, giving me pointers and tips and saying, you know, do this, and this. He was just kind of like, you know, walking me through like what's it like a day in the life on a radio show. You know, what's it like talking with folks, and you know, and he gave me a lot of insight on, you know, how he works with his show, and just a big supporter.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know, this is great. I really appreciate it, because you know, all we have is time.
Yeah.
Right. And for someone to spend time helping me, you know, with something that I'm interested in doing, it was just really, really nice.
Yeah. So, oh gosh, it happened again. It's like I think I need coffee. Luckily,
Yeah.
I read the Fox and Fig. Can you deliver? They're like right across the street.
Right,
and
right,
I need
right.
Perk coffee right now, please. If you're listening, please help. Send coffee. Gosh, what was I about to say? I'm just completely losing it on air. Is it break time yet?
Almost. Let me ask you a question real quick.
No, you can't ask me a question.
Oh gosh.
I'm just gonna go ahead. I got nothing.
So, with the North Pole Zombies, when is the second short story coming out?
It'll probably be around December.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna like I talked about last week. I'm gonna try and have book 3 of the Savannah Zombie novel series by October by the convention, and then hopefully I'll have book 2 or part 2 ready for Christmas time this year. I've got the title, I've got the story. I just need to actually write it. So I've got like not really an outline. It's more kind of just beats.
Yeah.
So
I tell you what, this morning I couldn't sleep, and I got up and, you know, just fiddled around a little bit, and I started writing. My son actually gave me the idea for this other short story with the Savannah Coven, or the Coven, not Savannah Coven, the Coven of Savannah.
yeah,
And he was talking about, you know, like a heavy metal band for a short story.
yeah,
You know, band of vampires or whatever. And I had this idea for who I wanted. Like, I already know who I want to be the main character. And she's, you know, just like this story set October 13th, 1989.
1989. Okay.
That's an actual date.
All right.
And it's kind of like the heyday of heavy metal.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like right before grunge. You know, that's basically one of those things where I was like, oh, dude, this is going to be awesome. So I started writing, and I could see the characters talking in my head. You know, I could visualize. You know, it was almost like watching a movie,
Yeah.
right? And but I had a dry run for like a month and a half.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't touched it in a month and a half, and so you know, I know we were talking last week about working on your projects or whatever and
Yeah.
setting deadlines and stuff like that. And it felt really good to belt out 1,000 words at like 4:00 in the morning.
Yeah.
And I haven't slept since then. So, you know, and we've got to do the station announcement real quick.
Yeah.
So you're listening to Muses Memoirs and More. I'm your host, Adam Messer, and today we're flipping the script. We've got guest host Josh Vazquez on, and you're listening to us on WRUU-LP Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings, community radio with global soul. And if you're just now tuning in, like I said, we have Josh Vazquez as the special guest host.
Hello.
And we were actually flipping the script today. Josh is an author and also like a screenwriter, so I thought flipping the script would be kind of appropriate.
Yes.
Since you're interviewing me today, and we're talking a little, and I'm kind of shy about talking about myself. I like to talk to other people, and I am known to be a chin wagger.
Uh-huh.
I like to talk, but I am kind of shy about
No, you've done a great job talking about yourself.
Well, thank you, Josh. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So humble. But
it is kind of awkward for me to, you know, because I'm used to being the one interviewing people.
yeah.
And so I kind of like,
Yeah.
have to.
But for those just tuning in, we've been talking just about Adam and like his background with writing, and how not all writers are just like, you know, book authors. There's so many different aspects, and Adam has seen the journalistic side. He's seen the academic side. He's started a local book convention here in Savannah. He's now hosting this radio show that just gets authors and creatives and lets them kind of talk about their craft, and it's just this very cool vibe on the show. Although, to be fair, I might be a little sided on that, only because I've been out of two out of 3 episodes, so I might be a little biased.
Well, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, you know, it's cool because you've been a big supporter. You know, we've been friends going on 5 years now.
Yep.
And you like a lot of the same kind of things I do, especially creatively. We, you know, we're kind of in the same circle of stuff, and you know, I get inspired by, like last night I listened to your podcast. You know, I was like, okay, wow, you know, I haven't watched the new Star Wars films
You haven't seen Solo yet?
or The Last Jedi
Or
Rogue
The Last
One.
Jedi?
I haven't watched any of them, and not because I'm protesting them or anything like that. It's just I just haven't made time
Just
to watch
haven't.
them. And then I was thinking last night, I was like, you know, I like what you said about the guy playing Solo, that he wasn't trying to imitate, you know, Harrison Ford.
Yeah.
And, you know, he's just trying to do his own thing. And I think that's a big thing with the fans. It's like kind of getting over, okay, this is the traditional Star Wars versus the new Star Wars.
Yeah.
And I'll give you a good example of how I feel like it would be a great character to model it after. Optimus Prime. Okay, started off as a Big Mac truck.
Yes.
Okay, over the years he's evolved so many different times, right? And this is me going back to my little nerdy days and, you know, being a kid or whatever. But Optimus Prime has evolved, and it's always some kind of variation. But he's always a truck, or
Yeah.
you know, he was a monkey for a while. He was a big gorilla.
Yeah, Optimus Primal.
Primal, right? He wasn't Optimus Prime then, but
Some
basically,
Beast Wars.
right? Beast Wars, yeah. Big bot, big monkey. But you know, the fans at first for Beast Wars didn't like it,
Yeah.
and then they kind of grew to love it, and then you know they started bringing around the Generation 1 stuff again, and I feel like that's kind of with Star Wars. It's just going through a growth period,
Yeah.
you know. So
That was one of the reasons I did the podcast, because I really wanted to talk about Solo, but I didn't really have like a way to go about doing
Right,
it.
right.
And I was like, okay,
what's
I'm
your
just gonna-
podcast? You can talk about whatever you want, right?
Yeah, it's like, well, this first episode, it's going to be about me talking about the things I want to talk about.
Right,
so,
right.
so sit and listen as I talk about Solo for 15 minutes.
And that's the mind of a creative. I mean, it's like, you know, we're not just one phase.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different dimensions.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about you, but I mean, it's hard for me to stay in one lane. Like, I'm constantly veering between different aspects, but they're kind of all related. Like how like everything you do is pretty much all related.
It's all
But it's
I tell you something that's
out.
helped me a lot with that, and I always have a bunch of projects. You can ask my wife; she's always like, "Oh gosh, what are you doing now?" Like when I told her I was going to be doing a radio show, she's like, "Huh? What?" I heard this phrase, and I can't remember who I heard it from, but it's like, what's better than perfect?
Mm-hmm.
Done.
Yes.
Getting the work done and setting deadlines.
Yeah.
If I've learned one thing besides loving your editor and working with your editor from writing for the Savannah News is deadlines.
Mm-hmm.
You have to you have to work with people's schedules. You have to do work around your schedule, especially because I work a normal 9-to-5 gig.
Yeah.
And you have to coordinate so that you can get it done with a deadline.
Yeah.
And I tell you what, with daily beat reporters, they really hustle.
Oh yeah, definitely.
For me, I have usually 2 to 3 week lead, sometimes longer. And but still having to get deadlines with the interviews and stuff done. And so what's better than perfect? Done. Getting it done.
Yeah.
And that's something that working on that short story series, last year, like I said, I did that novella. I did the first draft, and I haven't really messed with it since.
Yeah.
I've got probably 65,000 words sitting in a novella.
Yeah.
And I need to go back and do the editing process and that kind of thing. But I'm working on this new project. The Coven of Savannah is kind of like my little baby right now.
Do you want to talk about that? Like, is that something you want to put out there, or are you kind of still keeping it under wraps?
Yeah.
All right. So tell us about the Coven of Savannah. Like, what is it about?
The premise is kind of like a historical fiction of vampire lore in Savannah.
Okay.
And Coven of
So kind of like Abraham Lincoln versus vampires.
Kind of, like in the same kind of horror genre where it's like you got some historical. There won't be any historical figures per se unless they're like public figures, like maybe a president or something like that, or maybe a state congressperson or whatever. Yeah. But it takes place in Savannah, and it takes place over the years, and some of the areas that I've set were real places, but like some of the businesses I made up are fake. Historical fiction. But I wanted to just kind of dive into because Savannah's the most haunted city in the U.S., right?
That's what they say. Yeah.
And there's we've got the Savannah Zombie novel series. There are a lot of ghost stories out there.
Yeah.
A lot of paranormal stuff. Not so much vampire stuff.
No, there's really not.
And I've always kind of thought vampires were cool. I always had a big, fantasy idea about Dracula and stuff like that. Like how he kind of just mesmerized his victims. And
do you have a favorite? Is that like your favorite type of vampire? Like, so obviously there's like different types. There's like the very cool vampires, or like there's this scary looking.
I'm more
ones
traditionalist like that. I love the Blade series.
Yeah.
Underworld was another good series I liked. Dracula, obviously it was Bram Stoker's Dracula. I can't remember what year it came out, but it was really good.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say that I don't like the newer stuff. Twilight obviously has a huge gathering and following and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I'm just more into kind of like the Night Stalker type,
yeah, definitely
vampire.
Yeah.
I like the horror side of it, and I always thought it was kind of interesting how it's, if you look back even to Roman times, there was mythology around vampires.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where the idea came around. Thinking I'll set it in Savannah and just do a series of short stories for the book.
Yeah.
So I put a couple of them online at the covenofsavannah.com, just for people to kind of check out, little teasers. But I plan on having 13 stories.
Yeah.
And actually, thank you for that idea last week, because I was talking about doing like 12 or 13, and you're like, 13 would be good because also the 13 colonies.
Yeah, definitely.
I was like, oh.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's kind of where it's at. Really, I've just been working on it, just getting the writing done. And
That'd be very cool. Like, I'm kind of looking forward to it, like having it all as a whole. 'Cause I like historical fiction, sort of. One of my favorite books, obviously, a zombie book, is the Zombie Survival Guide by Max Brooks.
Yeah.
And my favorite part about that book is in the back, there's like an appendix where he goes through and he takes all these different historical accounts of like zombie attacks, and like one of them is like Roanoke, and that's like the real reason that people disappeared is because they were attacked by zombies, and the Indians had to come in, Native Americans had to come in and take out all the zombies and stuff like that.
I love the fact that he said that I think he said the most versatile weapon was a machete. It's like you could use it for everything.
Yeah, blades don't need reloading, so yeah.
So,
but that was one of my favorite parts. And then I really super enjoyed when he did World War Z, which the book is like way better than the movie. So you should definitely check that out. But Adam, thanks for letting me be on again and interview you. And this was fun. Yeah,
thanks for having
me. Thanks for having me have
fun.
You on. Yeah.
So you've been listening to Muses Memoirs and More.